Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. I'm Juan Ayala, and welcome to Actors with Issues. Each week, we bring you interviews with actors from across TV, film, and Broadway, taking many deep dives into their careers and getting into the successes, the struggles, and of course, the issues that they face as actors. That's enough about us. Let's dive into the episode. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary friends. Welcome to Actors with Issues with me, your host, Juan Ayala. Today's guest is an actor, singer, and dancer you've seen on the Broadway stage in A Chorus Line, The Scottsboro Boys, Kiss Me Kate, and he is back in Chicago as the slick and charming to death lawyer, Billy Flynn. Please welcome to the stage, James T. Lane. James, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Juan.
So I'm curious before we dive into Chicago and the sort of return to the show that you've had in a new capacity. How early did you discover performing, and when was that sort of moment that you realized that you wanted to go into it full time and pursue it on a career level?
Oh, goodness. Well, I went to an elementary school for the performing arts. And it was just by happenstance. My mother lied and gave my grandmother's address, which was a great school. It was a magnet school. And from kindergarten, I was leading the kids around choreographing to a Michael Jackson song. So it was like it was in me. But the moment where I was like, hey, there's a career here, or there's something here that I'd really like to get involved with. It was a touring company of the Phantom of the Opera. And I had gotten tickets in row D, and that chandelier fell, and I screamed loud, and I was like, something's happening here. I don't know what it is, but I want to be a part of it. That was the real moment of like, people are doing this thing as a career. Maybe I should kind of investigate that.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
me, it was seeing Beauty and the Beast on Broadway. That was the first Broadway show I ever saw, and just
Mhm.
the magic on stage that happened in that show, and
A lot of magic.
that score and Disney, and you're just like, this is magic. I want to do this. Like, how do I be one of those spinning plates or the
Mhm.
dancing fork, or um but yeah, so coming back to the show with Chicago, so you were involved in the show, you were sort of in the company for a while. So when did you first become a member of the company?
Yeah, so it was the second audition I had coming out of A Chorus Line, the run of A Chorus Line for 2.5 years. So it was in 2008, A Chorus Line was closing, and an audition for Chicago popped up, and I had a couple of auditions, and Chicago stuck. And so I was in and out of the company for 10 years. I had four or five stints in the company over those 10 years. Yeah.
Mm. And then did it feel sort of like a full circle moment getting to get this principal
Well,
contract?
absolutely. I'd never understudied it while I was there. And when I left the company in 2018, it was to join the show King Kong.
Mm.
And I was seeking more creative responsibility. We spend so much time in the world and in theaters, and I just thought like I'd really love to try my hand at being having a bigger piece of responsibility in companies. I really wanted to have an opinion in the room,
Mm.
develop a character that was not just in the ensemble. And in setting out from Chicago in 2018 was kind of, I had that in mind, and I did some regional work, Bert and Mary Poppins.
Mm.
I went out to the Muni and did some shows. And so, I loved that responsibility, like put me in coach, like,
Mm.
that's really what I wanted to develop and create. And I knew I'd had my eyes, I'd sat for, on stage left or stage right, looking at all of the Billy Flynns over the years,
Mm.
great Billy Flynns, Tom Hewitt, Brent Allen, Jerry Springer, and even the understudies that went on. I saw what they were doing with it. And I said, you know what, the next time I come back, when and if I'm ever asked, I'm coming back as Billy Flynn.
Mm.
And that I set my mind to that. And it's finally happened. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was a goal.
I was mentioning before we started the interview, but the show still feels so fresh. It was my first time seeing it on stage or in any live capacity. I only knew the film and the soundtrack prior, and um, it just I was just so surprised because sometimes after over 20 years, some shows can look a little tired, but the amount of folks who come in and out of these roles. You guys currently have Drag Race icon Jinkx Monsoon as Mama Morton.
Yes.
You know, Patti LaBelle has played the role. Sofia Vergara, like Wendy Williams. Like, you know, you have all these different levels of people of wonderful performers come in all of these roles. They said, as you said, Jerry. I had no idea Jerry Springer played
Jerry
Billy.
Springer did it. He was so funny, so funny. And
And
so Sofia Vergara was very funny too.
yeah, yeah, I've seen the clips. There's a few online. I sort of wanted to see like what were the sort of most out there castings in the
Uh-huh.
show, because Wendy Williams was kind of out of left field. I heard Pamela Anderson was delightful in the role.
Uh,
She was very cute from what I heard.
mhm.
But I never would have said like, yeah, Pam Anderson on Broadway in a
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
in a Fosse
And
show.
and then Jinx Monsoon,
Yeah.
who Jinx is in the work that she does in her own work, she lends herself to that vaudeville kind of that voice, that character. It's a lovely, refreshing, harkens back to Marsha Mason, who did it originally, which is a wonderful energy to have. And all of her fans that have come to see it, that the love that is spread throughout the cast. You're seeing a dynamite cast these days with Jinx, Charlotte D'Amboise, Amra Faye Wright, all of the ensemble. We've got some real longtime members still in the ensemble. Coming out of the pandemic, Juan, they had 4 weeks of rehearsal. Chicago the musical has never, to my knowledge, has ever had 4 weeks of rehearsal, because they
Mhm.
transferred from the Encores presentation right to Broadway. Encores is like 10 days.
Yeah.
They've never had, Chicago in all its time has never had 4 weeks of rehearsals in front of a mirror. So the show is refreshed, it's revitalized, it's got new energy, it's got a couple of few, new things coming out of the global pandemic. So you're seeing something that has been looked at with fresh eyes, new, and you're even seeing even more with these new cast members, Jinkx Monsoon, and what this cast is doing right now. It's
Mhm.
firecracker right now. So come on
Yeah.
and
Yeah, the energy was just like buzzing in the room the entire time.
yeah.
And again, having seen as many shows as I have, sometimes you feel lulls in the plot or anything, but it just breakneck pace the entire time. You
Mhm.
know, but given the name of our show, being actors with issues,
Mhm.
what comes to mind as a career obstacle or the sort of eye-opening moment you've had in your career that you can share with our audience?
Oh goodness. An eye-opening obstacle. I will say this, like I said, in 2018, I really made the decision to gather like more responsibility. And that can be an obstacle if you can stay in a long-running show, and that's fine. But if you've got that fire burning inside of you that really needs more creative responsibility, and you don't kind of seize that opportunity or seize other opportunities, it's scary. You're making a leap. It's really comfortable to kind of just hang out in a show, but an obstacle could be your own self not really taking the initiative of getting out there and pursuing other things, leaving the safe job to auditioning again. That can be a real kind of obstacle for you. But I got over the nerves of, or the security of having a secure job, and went out there and to get my to like feed my soul. That was lurking around in the back of my head for a while, and I got through that, and I've been met with some really lovely families outside in the world, some lovely theaters at the Muni, and back at home in Chicago. So
Mhm.
that leap over that obstacle has paid off.
Yeah, I think that it takes a lot, and it's of course easier said than done when we tell, especially like a young actor who's dealing with some industry heartbreak or something like that, when they're dealing with any of the many frustrations that come in this career, and sort of telling them to like take a moment and step back and sort of you know listen to what's going on inside. But when you finally do, and you have like the sort of time and the strength to do that, it can be so healing, and having done this show as long as we have, it's been, I think in May it'll be 3 years now that we've been doing the podcast.
Mhm.
Lots of COVID conversations, and all of the things that people have learned in all that time. Yeah.
Yeah. That's, speaking to that time, I took the time during that COVID to kind of really create my own work,
Mm,
you know, if you stay ready, you don't ever have to get ready, right?
yeah.
Like, so, obviously the gyms were closed, so I became a runner, and the telltale sign of a singer is breath control.
Mm,
Like, if you don't have the breath, that is obvious from the start. And so it was about building breath control. That's why the running was really, really good for me. It was about doing those really deep YouTube dives and
mm,
documentaries and getting all of that information. I left school and to pursue, I went on the European Tour of Fame. And so there's a lot of things that I felt that I was like, I need to go kind of back and study. And the pandemic was an opportunity to do all of that studying again. So it was a little like I was like, oh, here's my time to play catch up
mm,
and go back to school and study these great artists and write and really fill the well, I called it.
mm.
Just fill the well so that when the time comes, I am more than prepared. And and I've reaped a lot of dividends from that time.
And you did mention creating your own works. I do know I wanted to touch on your show Triple Threat,
Yeah.
which is a play that sings and sings and dances, which
A
I
play
love
that
because
moves, a play that moves and sings.
yeah, there you go. Because we have to give ourselves as like, well, I'm not a dancer, but I move well, which is definitely the case with me. I'm so not a I went to a drama program. As much as I love musical theater, I went to a drama program. I have no dance training, so I'm definitely like, oh, I move well. I can pick it up, but don't ask me to make up, an eight
Yeah.
bar dance
Yeah.
break.
I actually teach a dance class for singers and actors.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So get on the list. Yeah, because there's a need, like
Mm,
singers and actors, like they're like, you want me to move? Oh, and it's basically that safe space, that's not at a BDC or it's not at a steps where we take the time to kind of like really find out how to really do a pirouette and
mm,
to like really find your balance and to really, the last half of the class is like a little bit of like an audition tempo choreography for movers so that you get what you need in a kind of relaxed environment and you're not put on the spot right when you have to be on the spot and it's a safe space for singers and actors to kind of like develop that muscle of
mm.
movement that they want. But triple
Yeah.
threat, it's I got a commission from the Young Vic when I was working over in London in 2015 to write. And the commission was about 2 years long, and I wrote a whole lot about my experiences, and I've been, it kind of developed from like some other project to like more of like an autobiographical thing.
Mm.
And I'm 18 years free of drugs and alcohol, and I started writing.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I started writing stuff about my time as an artist dealing with all of that. And I remember the artistic director of the Young Vic, David Land, was like, "That's you?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Wow, that's not the person that I see today." And
Mm,
that's the way in because this is came out of that really hard time. And a lot of people see Billy Flynn. A lot of people see James T. Lane, a chorus line, and they're like, well, he couldn't have possibly had a wrong step in his life. And I'm like, baby, you just don't know, And I thought, like, perhaps there's something really there. Perhaps a lot of people do really need to know that you can get to the other side and not only survive, but thrive.
mm,
They're not only second chances, but third and fourths and fifths. And you can still develop your talent. It's not too late. So the show Triple Threat is about my experience in growing up as a black gay African artist from South Philadelphia and what I had to come up against being those things and add on being addicted to substances and getting through to the other side of that. So it's about all of those things. And I don't pull any punches. I don't hold
mm,
anything back. It's in the style of John Leguizamo, Whoopi Goldberg, Lily Tomlin. Anna Devere Smith, but with a dash of musical theater. So that's why it's a play that moves and sings.
Yeah.
And it's coming to a theater near you. I won't give too much detail about it, but maybe we can talk about it at a later time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Once that's done, yeah, we'll love to have you back to talk more about that. Congrats. I mean, that's amazing that you get to bring it back. How long has it been now since you originally did the show?
So, well, 2015 is when I got the commission. We did the show in May of 2021 down at the Ziders American Dream Theater. And then I went out on tour with Ain't Too Proud, The Life and
Mhm.
Times of the Temptations. And then we it's basically like you're a salesman, you're hawking your wares. You got them under your arm and you're like, I got this thing. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of no's. You got to kiss a lot of frogs until someone wants what you got,
Mhm.
and that is happening. So I'm so excited, and I can't wait to share it with a larger audience. It's
Mhm.
it's 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 tremendous what's happened.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thanks.
And just going back to Chicago really quick, what would you say was one of the biggest challenges with taking on the role? With this iconic role again that you said you've seen so many people do. So how did you want to like put your own stamp on Billy?
Well, I loved diving into the fact that, like, hey, I'm an African American man. What is Billy as an African American in that time? 1920s, 1930s Chicago. He had to be really slick. He
Mhm.
had to be really on top of it. A lot of the culture and in the community, I remember my mother saying when I was young, you got to be 10 times better than white folks to even be seen in the room. I can't even imagine or I've had to imagine what that's like
Mhm.
being a Billy Flynn at that time, dealing with the political aspect and being at the top of his game, but also this underworld of, like, I imagined him representing mobsters, at that time. Al Capone was
Mhm.
he was on retainer by Al Capone. I loved kind of imagining what that feeling would be. And, like, basically the way that I think of it is like Teflon, like nothing sticks. Nothing sticks. It can't stick because there's too many variables in which, being a black lawyer, it could go south. So he had to be at the top of his game. And I love, doing a little research of black lawyers at that time. And yes, there were black lawyers practicing law in Chicago at that time.
Mhm.
So I love not it's really, really sinking my teeth into who I am culturally within Billy Flynn. And I think you get that. I've heard some comments of, like, you're really who you are. You're not, I'm code switching when I have to, because that's what it's about. Being, you walk into some spaces, you're one way, but I can give it to you another way because of who I am and all of what that is, in that time. And the vaudeville of it, the aspect of it.
Mhm.
I'm a song and dance man. So when Razzle Dazzle, I get to let loose, very few people who have played Billy Flynn have gotten to don the Billy Flynn vest. Because usually people don't take off their jacket, but it's been Patrick Swayze, it's been Tony Yazbeck, it's been Usher, and it's been me.
Mhm.
Dancers who are song and dance men who, when the jacket comes off and you get to see the moves a little bit. So I'm incredibly honored to bring a song and dance Billy to this run. It's great.
Mhm. It was such a great performance. So again,
Thank you.
congratulations on that. And I just love the voice that you gave Billy.
Mhm.
In certain parts, especially in the courtroom, it's like, oh, he's preaching.
Yeah,
He is banging the pulpit. He is the jury are his parishioners. Just
right.
I just love what you did, and so much of what you just sort of shared is very much is seen in your performance. So
Thank
again,
you.
congrats on such a great run so far. How long are you in the show until?
I'm there through March 12th. Yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome. So before we go, we always end with a quick. It's not a rapid fire game. It used to be, but it stressed people out. So, fill in the blank. If I weren't working in the arts, I'd be.
I'd be a full-time teacher.
If you could have dinner with any actor, dead or alive, who would it be?
Sidney Poitier.
What role did you have the most fun playing?
Oh goodness. Bert in Mary Poppins. Absolutely. A
Mm,
joy and a delight. I could roll out of bed, not that I would, but I could roll out of bed and play that character because it felt so uniquely me.
mm.
Yeah,
And
so close to.
what is the best advice you've ever gotten?
Oh goodness. You know, when I wake up in the morning, and then I look in the mirror and I say, "Hey, beautiful man, I love you." And the best advice I've gotten is that I need to be on my side first thing in the morning.
Mm,
Yeah.
love that. And what is the worst advice you've ever gotten?
Um, the worst advice. I can't really recall. Uh, I can't really
Mm,
recall. Oh, that's interesting. I don't. Nothing comes to mind.
yeah,
Nothing comes to mind.
that's good. We try and put it out of our mind because we get lots of. I feel like there's way more bad advice out there than than good.
Right.
And lastly, in 10 words or less, what advice would you give to a young actor?
Oh goodness. Like I said it before, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Mm,
So be prepared.
yeah,
That's
love it.
that's that's it. That's it.
Yeah. Awesome. James, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
My pleasure.
And again, congrats on such a great run so far. So if anyone wants to give you a follow on social media, Instagram, where can they find you?
At James T. Lane,
Awesome.
Instagram. Yep.
And folks, you know the drill. You can follow us on Instagram at Actors with Issues. Give me a follow over at Juan Ayala Official and subscribe to our show on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new episodes every Monday and bonus episodes throughout the week. And you can see James T. Lane now in Chicago at the Ambassador Theater on Broadway through March. I'm Juan Ayala. This is Actors with Issues, and we'll see you next week.